But it does.
Speaking.
What?
Go ahead, please.
No, please. No, please.
I was gonna transition, so you know.
Well,
you're
no,
welcome to.
I was just gonna say.
Hello and welcome to Talking Too Loud with Chris Savage.
That was a pause.
Thank you. That's the new thing I do now is I add dramatic pauses. Like this.
I'm waiting with bated breath, damn it.
Well, wait no more, because today we have a great guest, Rand Fishkin, who's the co-founder and CEO of SparkToro. They make very fine audience research software. Rand was also the founder of Moz. He is an author. He wrote a book called Lost and Founder, which I love. And he spends his life, helping people, giving talks, educating folks, speaking his mind. You will see in today's interview that he does just that. So it's
like trying to get the words out. I got nothing.
You all right?
It was refreshing. It was very honest. Very honest.
It's amazing. I mean, that's who Rand is. So, I mean, we'll let the interview speak for itself. We can talk about Rand after the fact. Yeah. But what's got you talking to that today, Sylvie?
Today, I hate to do the one where I'm talking too loud in like an angry sense, but
yeah, then just don't do it. Do something else.
All right, I got to pivot to happy talking too loud. Happy talking to
happy.
Think
happy thoughts. Think happy thoughts.
You're just taking...
I feel like I know yours. I'm over here thinking I know what you're gonna say.
Really?
Yeah, you're like, oh, huge tennis head now, just like the U.S. Open, no big deal. I see you in person, and you're just like, tennis. What's happening with tennis? Oh, are you following it? I'm a huge tennis. You're a huge tennis head.
I have been talking too loud about tennis. It's true. You got me, and it is a happy talking too loud because my God, these athletes are incredible. Like, it's the only sport where it's just you out there. The psychology of just like, you have
What
to...
about wrestling?
No.
What about MMA?
Stop.
What about racing?
Stop.
What about car racing?
Okay.
What about golf?
You poke some holes in my strong open.
I think you're blinded by a love
by the light
of the game. I think you're blinded by a
okay,
by
but
light.
What I meant was, let me finish. Let me try again.
Let me finish.
Forget it. Let's move on to what's got you talking too loud. Let me finish. But tennis.
Yes. I am. I'm very excited to be watching my sister's dog.
Look at that. Look at that doggy.
He is like he's got me made, this guy. I am the only one apparently that he can trick to giving him multiple dinners. He'll like eat, he eats dinner at around 3 p.m.
Early bird catches the worm.
But if someone else feeds him, he comes to me and acts like he hasn't eaten. And unfortunately, he's tricked me.
You fall for it every time.
The other day, I was like, he's going bananas. And I'm like, what is this guy doing? He's going to pee on the floor. He's going to do something. And so he's like going to the door. I'm like, all right, I got to take him out. So I take him out. And he just runs me over and he goes over to the car and starts putting his paw on the door because my sister's not here. And he wants me to take him to see my sister.
Interesting. I feel like you've developed a real rapport with this dog. There are tricks. There's like, I'm sensing your needs.
I think, don't they say that like, I mean, he's not my dog, but don't they say that like a dog and their owner become one? And I feel like I too am like Louie. I need an early dinner now. I get really hangry. I put on a show. He's like a circus dog. So in any case, we don't need to go any deeper into that because we might have gone too far. That seems very possible.
Never too far.
I think it's
just far enough.
Speaking of just going far enough.
Yeah.
Let's cut to the interview with Rand. Rand, welcome to the show. So good to see you.
Chris, lovely to be here. Sylvie, thanks for having me.
I like
How
your
are you
studio.
today?
This is
beautiful studio.
You see the color-coded
yeah.
books?
I know. Yeah, I've got my bookshelf. I have my Adventure Time art. Geraldine made these. a few years ago for various birthdays and Hanukkahs. I got my new flag. One of my some friends had a kid come out and she gave me her trans pride flag. So now I keep that in my office. I got all sorts of stuff.
I like
That's
it.
awesome. I like it. I feel like between our screens, like I'm basically dressed in white with a white background. You have like so much color going on. It's great. It's a nice
makes
contrast.
sense.
Yes.
Yeah.
You've always known me as a colorful guy.
You're a very colorful guy. I mean, I think you're a guy who can take a risk with a shirt and you can pull it off. Not everybody can.
This is a t-shirt. This is basically your t-shirt, but it has this little decal thing. And then it came with this nice,
Look
cardigan.
at that little combo.
That's really nice. It's a
That's
nice
very
combo.
Because
Yeah.
Italy has style, right? Like that is
At the end of the day, we don't need to record anymore. That's it. That's the
it.
podcast.
It's
we
done.
got it. We got it.
apparently I am a fit for most Italian styles. So it just works out great.
I know you just go there to shop. No big deal.
I mean, I go there for a lot of reasons, Chris.
We've made a lot of content together over the years.
Not enough.
Not enough, though. That's changing right now. And that's changing with this and many secret things coming soon. So be on the lookout. But, obviously this show is called Talking Too Loud because when I get excited, I cannot control the volume of my voice. It turns out this is genetic. My kids also, in particular, Olympia.
Oh, yes.
She is extremely loud.
I remember this from when we were over at your house.
Yes.
And it was like, okay, when she was into a toy, like, wow.
Yeah. She's crazy. So I have to start. And like, what's got you talking too loud these days?
So many things. All right. So on the I'm excited about this. This is going amazing side. I don't know if you know this, but I'm the creative director for a video game that is being done by a studio called Akupara down in Los Angeles. And, we're sort of funding the initial demo development. And also I'm jumping into Slack every day and learning all sorts of things about game development and designing this world and approving art assets. And holy crap, it's incredible. It's an amazing experience. And it's extremely different, but also has lots of overlap with kind of software development stuff that I've done before. Also, I have like sort of anger and frustration issues around real estate generally. So I have, lots of friends in the Northwest, in Seattle and Portland in particular, who, there's been a small sort of rise in crime and a significant rise in homelessness because of the pandemic. And I cannot get over how intelligent people who have good ethics and good values don't understand what's happening or why and want to solve it the wrong ways. And it pisses me off. I get very angry. I spend lots of time talking way too loud to my friends and sort of grabbing them. Why don't you understand this? Rent prices are directly correlated with homelessness. Like, you can't have a wealthy city where you make homes unaffordable and then complain that you have unhoused people. Not allowed. Either your home prices stay where they are or go down, or anyway, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So
that's it. Well, I feel
like
like you've got three major topics for us that we could go into, and I think we should veer toward the one that
are we only talking about one of these?
Oh, no. We're going to talk about much more. But I think even of the things that you're talking too loud about right now, we could spend hours on any of them. And most of them we can't solve. I want to go back to the video game for a second. So you decide you want to make a video game. Like, obviously, it's very different from the day-to-day for you in terms of running a SaaS business, have done that before, have scaled it, have you're using the analytics and your intuition and your creativity to constantly grow and evolve this thing. And then here's this other thing that feels very hits based, really entertainment.
You get
value.
one shot.
Yeah.
Right?
So
get one shot.
How do you think about this? How'd you get into doing it? What can we expect? How do you think about it?
Yeah. So, I mean, from a business and marketing perspective, from a sales perspective, it is the absolute inverse of developing a SaaS product, right? Like a Wistia or a SparkToro, where with SparkToro, every day we're sort of making little changes and optimizing things and trying to learn more about our customers and then make the product a little better, right? And the hope is, in 2 or 3 or 4 years, MRR goes up and up and up. And with a video game, it's like making a movie or writing a book. You kind of hit publish and that's it. You can optimize a few things afterward. You can send some updates. Thankfully, video games are rarely sold on store shelves anymore. So at least you can update it. But really, it's just about the product at launch. And this is one of the things that interests me so much about the video game space as compared to other hits-driven businesses. So for example, Sylvie and Chris, I'm sure you have music that you think is excellent and it's not very popular, or movies that you think are amazing and very few people have seen them. Maybe those movies even lost money.
That's the only type of movie. That's the only type of movie that Sylvie likes.
The sinkers.
The sinkers, yeah.
I mean, and reasonably so. I think often in a lot of these artistic genres, movies is a great one, plays, musicals, poetry, right there. The market, there's lots of money in it, but it almost all goes to a very small number of publications, right? Like the Thor 4 movie could be terrible. I haven't seen it, but it's going to make a ton of money, right? Like Marvel doesn't have to do anything, whatever, it doesn't matter. And then movie that, you might want to produce for a couple $1 million could be absolutely incredible. The best movie in 20 years, and it probably won't attract much of an audience. But video games are different. Video games, almost always sales is very well correlated to product quality. So if the game is incredibly fun and unique and interesting, and it will do well. You could argue that some games that are kind of terrible do well because of the publisher and the history and whatever, and that is true. But the cool thing about independent video games is there are literally tens of millions of people waiting on Steam and Nintendo Switch and PlayStation and Xbox for a new game to come out, looking at the store every day, checking out every new game that might be available and seeing if they're interested in it. And so if you make something that is high quality that starts generating some buzz and, people on YouTube are playing it and people are, posting it to their TikTok.
Yeah.
It will do well. And it's very difficult to make a crappy product, especially a crappy product without a brand name behind it, do well in spite of the crappiness.
So it feels like a fair fight.
It's an equalizer, yeah.
Video games is one of the only artistic mediums where it's a fair fight. That's exactly right. And that is what attracted me to it. I was like, damn, I've always wanted to be more artistic in what I do. And I've always felt a little, I don't know, constrained by sort of the B2B software world, which I love. And it has lots of aspects that I lean into and still, obviously I do it every day, but I wanted to lean into my artistic side. And so during the pandemic, Geraldine was like, my wife was like, Rand, don't wait until, SparkToro sells or, you move on to the next thing. You don't need to wait until you're 50 or 55. Who knows if you'll even want to do it in a decade? Just do it. Just go together, take savings, she's like, we're doing okay. Take some of our savings, put it into it, see if you can raise some money for it, whatever. And so that's exactly what I did. I sort of spent some time just, pouring through all the information I could find. I found this guy who runs a game design community in Europe, and he's actually now the game designer, the part-time game designer on our game. And he was training me up, and I'm learning all this stuff about how to do it and how to recruit a team. And I started networking into, hey, does anybody know anybody in this world? Can you connect me with studios? And then I interviewed a bunch of studios. Then Moz sold last year, almost exactly a year ago. And, it was not, we can talk about this too, right? This gets into some drama and seriousness and ugliness and all that kind of mess, but
we like it all. We like the mess. Yeah. We like keep going with the games.
Trust me. Sylvie, the mess is it just goes so deep. It goes so deep.
Damn.
So
okay.
problematic. But
you're the most transparent person ever, Rand. It's I know amazing. It stresses you out sometimes, but it's absolutely incredible.
I think it's amazing.
Well, so here's the story, right? You're familiar with the venture funding model. So a lot of people who joined Moz, who did great work, had stock options, right? And those stock options are only worth something if Moz's sale price was sort of above certain numbers, and every dollar above that is something more meaningful, and every dollar below is not. And so, when Moz sold, I'm not allowed to disclose the sale price. I had to sign the NDAs and blah, blah, blah. I think Geraldine called it. She was like, I am the most angry someone who's made a ludicrous amount of money can be. And that was, so we still owned a very large portion, I think close to 20% of the company. So even though the sale price was not what one might hope for,
you guys
we got large checks.
Yeah.
And one of the first things we did was go into Carta, which is, it shows you sort of all the people who have stock options and how much they're kind of going to make. And we were just like, this is bullshit. In the sort of 30, 40 days afterward, we sat down and wrote cards to, Moz people, ex-employees, folks we had worked with, well, I had worked with, and then put big honking checks in there. And I think we spent $700,000 sort of topping people up.
Holy moly.
Over the next, which, was not, it's more money than we ever had in savings.
Yeah.
And also as a significant percent, but not like, not a problematic number, which is also kind of insane, right? And it shows you what goes on. Like, yes, I worked at Moz longer than anyone else, but only by a few years. Did I really work that much harder? Did I do that much better work than any team member? Why is my reward, 100x or 1000x what anybody else made? It just doesn't, it's not logical. It doesn't make sense. It's very late stage capitalist, problematic. But one of the beautiful things that happened from that was, well, two beautiful things happened. One, we called up Geraldine's cousins and we're like, you go to college and you go to college and you go to college, right? So covering, family college funds, that was something special. We were also able to do that. Chris, I don't know, or Sylvie, maybe, did you know Russ Jones?
Yes, I think so.
Moz? Yeah. He was out in Raleigh, and he passed away just about a week after the sale.
Oh, wow.
He didn't pass away from COVID, but COVID had sort of prevented him from going to the doctor for a long time, and he had an undiagnosed heart condition. And
oh man,
it's just, really super sad, right? So we were close with him and his wife and his 3 girls, and so we got to put some funds into their college fund, and but so something, trying to do some right things here, and also called up the game studio and was like, hey, the budget for the game just went way up.
Yeah. First of all, Rand, like, that's some heavy stuff, man, the whole thing. And I appreciate you sharing it, because most people never talk about this, and it does impact, how other people can structure their time, structure their companies. So I just really, I appreciate you sharing that. And also, it's completely in character. Like, when you would do the updates on Moz while you were running Moz, every time you would do one of those major updates, Brendan and I would look at that and be like, look at this, look at that. Oh, this thing. Oh, we should try. Like, it was crazy. Like, the learning that could come from what you've done. And your book, there's so many other things to talk about, but I also, it's been very cool to see what you're doing with SparkToro, and to see you whip up magic again. And even in how the business is structured, right? And for investors, I invested in SparkToro. Thank you for that. But maybe you can explain to folks who don't know what it is, like, one, like what the company is, and two, how the structure is different, like how you're doing it differently this time to try to make things not end up the same way.
Yeah. No, that's exactly the goal. It's really weird because Chris, I think that one of the problems is people might listen to a story like this one and say, oh, well, Rand raised a bunch of money in venture, had this whatever tough career with ups and downs, and Moz didn't get to the place that, he sort of hoped it would, but it sounds like he still made some money. So maybe this is a good path. And I want to be like, no, friends, no. Like, first off, almost no founders in venture world own even 10%, maybe less than 5%. I think the average is something like at IPO or sale time, the average founder owns like 4% of their company.
Yeah, insane.
Right. So, I'm an extreme exception in terms of that. And that was just, virtue of, I guess, making some good decisions around the funding thing, and not giving into the pressure of like, hey, take more dilution, but take more money, because
but
you also can do more things, right?
You have always been one of those people who know how to tell a story, and what people are feeling and the problems that people have. And I feel like I've always seen you just like teach and educate over and over and over and over. I mean, that's what you're doing right now. Like, you're sharing stuff that for most people is really hard to share. And I feel like you almost see it as like a duty. Like, this is my duty is to help other people by educating them. I mean, you were doing that with Moz in like amazing ways, right?
Yeah,
so it's not a surprise to me that you're still doing it. It's not a surprise to me that you ended up in a different spot. But if someone's going to take something from it, I mean, take that part.
Yeah. So certainly I think there's a lot of value in giving before you expect something in return, right? And that's proven true at Moz and SparkToro. But also, when I think about what I would like for the future, and you sort of asked about like, hey, can you tell us about SparkToro and like why you're doing all this stuff differently, right? The goal is very different this time. So venture-backed business, right? Your goals are hyper growth at all costs, right? It's sort of extraction of value. Creation of value is nice, but extraction of value is the important thing, right? Like, your goal is to 10x your investors' return, hopefully 100x it or more, or die trying, right? And die in the business sense, right? Because the overwhelming majority, I think it's something like 93 out of 100 venture investments fail to return their minimum investment, and more than 85 out of 100 are basically sold for a loss. They don't make back 1x, which means no one but maybe the founder gets rewarded at all, and a lot of times not even the founder. So, again, Moz weirdly seems like a kind of stuck in the middle. Maybe it did okay, but it's probably in the 90th percentile of venture-backed companies, and yet still didn't do very well. It's just weird. The mathematics of that whole ecosystem are really problematic. And when you think about like a lot of the things that people talk about economically in the US and beyond, it's like wealth inequality and distribution of resources. And venture is as guilty as anything, right? As bad as hedge funds, maybe not quite that bad, but like almost in terms of what it does to the environment, right? It essentially says, hey, whatever, Travis Kalanick, you get, $10 billion, 10,000 other founders, and the 10 million people who work for all those companies, you get virtually nothing, right? You're sort of undercompensated compared to what you could get at normal company, right? Big tech co. And so with SparkToro, similar to Wistia, right? A lot of what we're trying to do is build a company that is focused on long-term survival, long-term profitability. We pay dividends to our investors. So, Chris, one of the great things, I just got our August financials, and we technically have enough money to repay our investors the 1x, which is incredible, right? It's only been like 2.5 years since launch, not even, and this business is growing almost as fast as Moz did in its first 3 years, but with far more capital constraints and a team of only 3 people, right? It's just myself, Casey, and Amanda. Our big goal is, let's build something that can survive for a long time, provide lots and lots of value to our customers and to our audience, right? To the people who want to learn from us, give us a great life, right? Like, Amanda and Casey and I should have great lives that are happy and filled with all the things that you might want from a great job, in terms of the relationship we have with each other and with our audience and customers, and how many hours we have to work, which, we try and keep it so that None of us ever have to put in more than 20 or 30 hours a week. Oftentimes we do, but we don't have to, right? It's kind of, so like just having that freedom and flexibility is super important to us. And we're not willing to compromise on that to whatever, put our nose to the grindstone and try and extract more faster growth, right? We believe that in fact, SparkToro will do better if we make better decisions by getting more sleep and having happier home lives and, you know,
The long-term approach.
being able to
Yeah.
invest in all those personal things. So super different goals and outcome than venture backed. And the problem as I see it is media and the cultural environment and the startup world don't respect that. You know what they do? They call it a lifestyle business. And they do that pejoratively to insult people like us who want to have great lives in addition to great businesses and want to distribute wealth rather than concentrate it in a few hands. And I don't have angry words that are strong enough for that kind of behavior and that type of brainwashing. And I hope it can stop. But the only way I think it can stop is if SparkToro, Wistia, companies and investment vehicles that are alternatives do incredibly well.
Yeah. No, I think that's right. As you were talking about that, I was thinking about micro acquire and like this, like basically, for those who don't know, it's a marketplace where a lot of like small SaaS companies and stuff can find a home. Like someone can build something that gets to $1 million in revenue, $500,000 in revenue, $2 million in revenue, and someone else can come along and say like, oh, I find value in that and I'll buy it. Or you can actually try to get the work-life synergy going where you can work on hard problems for a long time. I just think that it's very hard to do that when you're on someone else's timeline. That's what I think about a lot with like the funding is like it forces a different timeline.
And also I think part of it too for a ton of the startup ecosystem is that they make it all about the founder, right? Like, oh, founders, you're so important and you should be rewarded and you're the risk takers. And because of that message repeated over and over and the sort of worship and the interviewing and the amplification and, you know, the stages and all this stuff, the awards, a lot of founders start to believe that they are better and more deserving than everyone else on their team. And that it's okay if, you know, I think maybe it is okay if you make, what was the average in 1950, right? That the CEOs of most companies would make. Yeah. The multiple was like 10 to 20x what an average employee would make. Seems pretty reasonable, not like completely out of whack. 100, 1,000, 10,000.
Yeah.
Something's messed up, right? And yet this environment has made a lot of us start to believe that that's okay, and I don't think it is.
It also made me think about I think it was, didn't you just read like I feel like you just shared the Derek Sivers book?
Yeah.
Do you remember that talk he gave about like the fast follower?
I'm not sure I saw that.
It's this definitely worth watching. Basically, it's this talk of there's just someone dancing at a festival. There's music playing, and one person gets up and starts dancing, and they're like having a great time, and they're moving, and everyone else is like sitting on this hill, and it takes like guts to be the first person, but it's also like the first person's kind of crazy. Like they're just up there getting wild. They don't really care. And then the moment there's a second person, like the first follower, then that person took a risk. Cause like, am I crazy to dance like this person up here? Or is this actually the new hot thing?
This is going to turn into a thing.
Yeah. And so they get up there and then very quickly there's like a third person and a fourth. And then suddenly the video is incredible because it starts, I'm getting chills thinking of the video. It starts so slow. And once that second person gets out there, it ends up being like thousands of people dancing or something. Everyone on the hill is out there, and it's about the power of that fast follower and the first person who takes a risk. And I think a lot about that with like your early team of anyone who comes in at the beginning and believes in it is a signal and shows like, hey, this could be something. I believe in this opportunity. I am going to work like crazy. I'm going to figure this out. Like they deserve so much credit and reward for that. So that's a great shout out. Wow. We were going so deep on so many interesting topics, and I really want to make sure that people understand what SparkToro is. We just were at Inbound yesterday, and we were talking about how you stand out with an audience. And like you and Amanda have been doing some amazing work on this. So I would love for you to also like talk about that and zero-click content and all of this.
Yeah. So first off, I've explained SparkToro a ton of different ways, and I think I found one that that works the best, right? As a marketer or a product builder or an entrepreneur, or someone who's building a podcast, right? Trying to build an episodic series, a newsletter, whatever it is, right? One of the things that you really want to do is have a deep understanding of what your audience is thinking about, talking about, how they behave, their demographics, their geography, the sources of influence that they pay attention to, like what other email newsletters they subscribe to, and what YouTube channels they subscribe to, and what subreddits do they read, and who do they follow on Twitter and LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram and TikTok, and et cetera, et cetera. And the best way to do that, absolute best way to do that, is get the home address of all your potential customers, right? Their physical address where they live. Learn lockpicking, break into their house, steal their phone, right? Steal their phone, and then get their unlock code and go through everything that they subscribe to, right? Like you go into their email and you like download everything.
I like this approach. This is innovative.
Yeah. No, it highly
legal,
effective.
Super legal. I love it.
Super illegal and completely unethical. I recommend that no one ever do this. This is, it's Cambridge Analytica times 10. But what's incredible? What's incredible about the modern day that we live in is tons of people puts this information publicly online.
Yeah.
You just have to go crawl it, right? So like if you go visit my Twitter profile, you will see that it links to my website, and my website links to my Instagram and my Facebook and my, LinkedIn and my YouTube, and right, all these places. If you go to my YouTube, you'll see all the channels I'm subscribed to. If you go to my Reddit, you'll see all the subreddits that I'm subscribed to and all the comments I've ever left. All this information is just sitting there, but acquiring it all for one person is just a royal pain in the butt. Acquiring it for like 10,000 people who are part of the audience you want to reach, so much work, like super annoying. And so Casey and I with SparkToro said, we should just do this for the entire internet. Like, let's just do it for everyone. And that's what SparkToro is. You are able to go to the homepage. You can sign up for free. We will never charge you. You can use it free forever. It's not a 30-day trial or anything. It's just free. You can go and search for like, my audience uses these words in their profile. Like they call themselves interior designers. And I only want to look at the ones in Canada because that's where I'm starting my lighting design business or whatever. And SparkToro will tell you, oh, okay, well, we have, 7,212 interior designers in Canada. And you can see that 16% of them, read this publication, and 12% follow this podcast, and 11% pay attention to this YouTube channel, and 36% are men, and 64% are women, or 62%, and 2% are non-binary. Like all that data is just right there. It takes less than 30 seconds. It's very convenient. Like, it is ludicrous to me that someone hasn't done this before. I don't understand. How is SparkToro the first people to do this in we launched in 2020, and it's just wild. Like that data has been there for 10, 12 years. Just seems obvious that someone should make this. So we had to do it.
And I think it's also worth saying that, you've said this before, and I love this way of thinking about it, which is like, how do you get in front of your audience? Well, someone already is. And just find out who those people are. It's that simple.
I mean, there's two ways to think about that, right? Someone's already in front of your audience. Your audience is already paying attention to many different things, right? In different percentages. And so if you want to prioritize your media plan, your advertising, your PR, your content marketing, your outreach, your guest posting, like whatever it is, you should know those numbers. And also, if you want to learn from the people who are successful, hey, how did they do that? How did they build that audience? I should pay attention to this. It's not this person who's had a ton of success reaching exactly this group. It's this person. That go figure out what they're doing right. Go follow them and pay attention to them. Go invite them to be a guest on your webinar, at your conference, on your podcast, on your blog, right? Like the number of things you can do with this data, if on just on the marketing side, is huge. Then there's tons of advertising applications, obviously. There's lots of like sponsorship and co-marketing stuff. And there's tons of product building intuition here too, because SparkToro will tell you things like, here are the interests and words and phrases that these people are, posting about and talking about, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's almost overwhelming because in terms of the opportunity, like sometimes when you look at something, it's like too much opportunity, no one knows where to start. I'm glad you said those examples, because I think that is the way to think about it, as we've talked about it at Wistia.
And that's the biggest problem we have with SparkToro right now, is a lot of people will use it and then they'll cancel their account. They'll be like, to be honest, this data is amazing, I'm just not sure what I'm supposed to do with it. So the people who have the most success with SparkToro generally, they tend to be folks who are like, I need to solve this problem, right? I am trying to solve the problem of what content should I create, or where should I focus my advertising? Or a lot of agencies are like, my clients need to know where to do their marketing and advertising. And those are huge. And I think for a lot of folks, they hear about SparkToro, they find the information interesting, but they don't know how to apply it. What's great is that's okay by us.
Yeah.
It's totally fine. You can come, you can see it, you can check it out. And then 6 months from now, a year from now, 2 years from now, you'll be like, oh man, I really need to solve this problem. Oh, SparkToro would help me do that. And that's great, right? We don't have to get you, it's not like Moz where it's like, oh man, how do I convert you to a customer as quickly as possible and as many of you as possible? SparkToro, we can be patient.
Yeah,
right?
It's back to that longevity, the long game.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can play a totally different game when you play the long game.
Play a totally different game.
Explain what zero-click content is, please.
So Amanda Natividad, our VP of marketing, came up with this concept, right? She was basically reading some of the stuff that the research that we'd been doing around like essentially zero-click searches in Google, where 2/3 of Google searches, when you get to Google, you search for, I don't know, how old was Queen Elizabeth? And they're like, okay, and Google just provides the answer, right? They're like, oh, she was 96 and here's a ton more information. You don't have to click on anything, right? And more than 2/3 of searches end without a click. They don't go anywhere else on the internet. They just stay inside Google's ecosystem.
And just for people to understand, like, when was it that none of it was zero click? When was the last time that it was?
I think some of it was always zero click, right?
Okay.
Google, for a long time, Google's had, for example, the weather widget, right? Since like 2003 or 4.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, certainly when Google came out in 1997, right? Larry and Sergey wrote this thing about how we want you to come to Google and we want you to leave as fast as possible.
Yes.
We're trying to get you out to the rest of the open web. Our goal is to provide value to the open web, right? We're this portal to the open web. And they railed against folks like AOL and Yahoo, who tried to keep people in their ecosystem. And then they lived long enough to become the villain in their own story.
Classic.
And that, that sort of sucks.
That's how the arc goes, right? Hero, villain, then maybe hero again. We just have to wait and see.
I mean, it's crazy that, when I think about Jerry Yang, I'm like, ooh, not died, but like sort of economically died a hero.
Yeah. Yep.
Tom from MySpace died a hero, right? Economically speaking, right?
God. Oh my God.
Tech company.
Okay. So I interrupted you though. So
no, so zero click, right? Zero click searches are one thing. Amanda sort of realized that this doesn't just apply to the world of search. Social media is exactly like this. TikTok doesn't even let you leave TikTok. Instagram barely lets you leave Instagram. Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, they have all started prioritizing content that keeps you in the ecosystem rather than sends you out. So historically, what a lot of marketers would do across, social networks, email newsletters, search, content that was made for search, the SEO or paid search, their goal was take you out of the environment where you see the content and come to our property, our web property, our page, our video, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And now that is a very unsuccessful strategy. Like structuring your marketing around the idea that you can drag people away from the platforms that are trying to keep them is just, you're fighting against the current. And so Amanda realized what you should do is go with the current. Create value and build awareness, build your brand, build interest in your product, do education, all these kinds of things on the platform. Inform people through search, through that featured snippet of the information that you want them to get, so that you get some value in the future, even though you can't measure it, even though you'll never know that the person saw that, you'll never know that you didn't get the click, you won't be able to track it. Send that tweet thread, right? The tweet storm that tons of people see has, 1 million impressions and thousands of retweets, even though you can't measure any value that you got from it. Put your video on YouTube where you get subscribers and generate impressions, but you can't see any clicks coming directly back to your website. All of this stuff. Send an email newsletter that is pure value. No one ever has to click and go to your site. So maybe it looks like some people opened it, but you just don't know. You can't track this. Impossible to track, but incredibly valuable. And in playing to the incentives of the platform system is what she calls zero-click content. And it is an incredibly successful way to build a brand online today.
Yeah, I think it's you said a lot of stuff in there that is like scary to folks, but I think really important to wrap your mind around, about not being able to track, about building a brand, which is like a feeling and an idea in someone's mind that's so strong that they will come back. And when they do search, they type in SparkToro, they type in Wistia, they go direct, right? It's a direct organic. It's the classic. It's
dark traffic, yeah. Right? Like a ton of this is going to show up in you're going to look at your referrals and be like, I don't know, I guess branded search is everything. and guess what, friends? Branded search doesn't exist in a vacuum. No one goes to Google and searches for your brand unless you somehow got them already
unless
thinking
they actually
about you.
Care. Yeah. And I think it's funny because of course it makes perfect sense, right? Like all the social channels want to keep people on their site. They all make money with advertising. So people stay on the site, more ads, more time. So it's like, we're basically saying like, you're going to build on rented land, but you're going to know that if you build an actual connection to folks, the rented land might change and another one might pop up. Like TikTok's a perfect example. It's becoming more and more relevant every day. But it works when you are actively not linking out and you are making something that by itself is genuinely valuable.
I was just thinking, because we may, even for Talking Too Loud, I'm always like, should we say like, listen here and then put the link to the, and really what you're saying is like, that's almost wasted real estate.
In fact, I think in many algorithms, it doesn't work. Like we've done tests with the link on LinkedIn versus not. It does better without the link.
So Sylvie, I have found this is what's awesome. I love this. Like you can see this in your own data.
Yeah.
So take a clip from this episode, right? Put some captions in it, make the clip like 2 minutes long so you can put it on Twitter and LinkedIn and Instagram and whatever, right? Like all the channels. No link, no mention of the whatever show or anything, just have the name of the show like in the corner. And then if the clip is really good and really engaging and you can share it, in a super engaging way, you'll see that like thousands of people will watch it. You can look at the LinkedIn analytics or the Twitter analytics, whatever. And then the same day that it's posted, go look at your Google search traffic for the branded term with the name of the show. And it's crazy. Like I can see this so many times, right? I'll post something that's like hey, here's this thing about SparkToro. I'll post it on LinkedIn. I'll see that it gets, 1,000 people watch the video, watch 75% of the video or more. I'll go look in whatever Google Search Console, or I'll go look in GA, and I'll see this spike in like branded visits. And I'm just like, there you go. Look at that. Beautiful. And if you put the link in, LinkedIn is like, no, we're not going to show this post to anyone. Links suck. Go away.
Well, it's also interesting because I remember the first time we did a branded ad for Wistia, and I don't know if you remember this thing called the Deck Network. It was like an ad network. There was one ad per page. It was on like the 37 Signals blog, and it was on Daring Fireball and a few other things. And it was $6,000 a month, one ad, and I think our revenue at the time was $8,000 a month, if I remember correctly. And we put on a bunch of different, we could try 4 different ads or something, and we did the 4. And the one that ended up working said Wistia. It was a picture of a t-shirt and it just said Wistia, share video like a boss. It wasn't working because people were clicking the link. It was working. You could see it when that went live. People were searching like share video like a boss and searching for Wistia. And we saw the bumps in the traffic. And it ended up all being like, essentially came up as like direct and search for Wistia at a time when we had so little traffic that it was undoubtable. Like I know exactly what you're saying. This is exactly what is driving people to, there's nothing else.
Plus back then, Google would tell you what keyword people searched for.
That was helpful. That was very helpful.
Now they won't tell
a different time. I think about that because sometimes now if we have too many things going on, it's like even hard. It's almost like why it's important to have sub brands for certain things. At the very least, you can justify at some point, like, yes, the connection's there, because you just have to see it a few times. And then you can go back and say, like, all right, we can look at the view count and the engagement on LinkedIn or on TikTok, and we can have an understanding of how well it's doing. But it's creating that link.
It's just wild because marketers 10 years ago, 12 years ago, were trained not to report those vanity metrics, likes, shares, follows.
We made so much fun of that.
Social.
Yeah. It was like, this is irrelevant.
We would make fun of it. You'd go to Inbound, you'd go to MozCon, and you'd be like, oh, this is
these stupid vanity metrics. Let me show you the real shit. Yeah.
the real metrics. And now vanity metrics are the only thing, right? Vanity metrics are like how you measure the lift. It's, you know what it's a lot like? It's a ton of how big brands in the 20th century measured brand lift when they would do campaigns, right? So Coca-Cola would be like, hey, let's do a radio campaign in Cleveland and a different one in Cincinnati, and we're going to see which one worked better, and then we're going to measure in-store sales lift.
Well, it's funny you say that because we're doing brand surveys now.
Oh, interesting.
Like twice a year, basically, we go and we like hire panelists of
like Qualtrics or SurveyMonkey or whatever.
And basically, it's like, hey, here are the bunch of people who we believe to be in our target. What is our brand awareness in that target? What do they think that we are? Like all this stuff, and we look at that because we needed something that was external that would give us some more perspective on how, like, basically on the opportunity, like how well are we doing in the market, like writ large versus like in our own data, we can see numbers going up and down, but we wanted some kind of perspective. And it's been helpful because there's certain things that people are like, oh yeah, they know you, but they think you're like X. That's the jump. And it's like, okay, well now we're X and Y and Z. And so it's clear that even just like shifting the message slightly, but I never thought we'd do this. That's my point. Like it seemed crazy to do this when you have all this data that you'd think, but so much of it, as you said with the keywords, like we used to be able to see what keywords people are searching for. And now you can't.
No,
it's wild. It's a different world.
And so much of it is dark traffic too, right? So like even when you get a click from Facebook, if it's a mobile click, it'll show as dark traffic, meaning no referrer, right? TikTok comes without a referrer string. So if someone does click on a TikTok profile and then click to you can't see it. The other interesting one is, I believe it's YouTube, the YouTube link that's under the video. For a long time, like they weren't passing those. It's silliness.
It is silliness.
So
it's crazy. Rand, thank you so much. I could talk to you for so long about this stuff. And unfortunately, we're supposed to keep this to like an hour and not like 2 hours. But will you come back sometime?
I will. Yeah. Cut out all the cruft from this one and then make the episode and then we'll distill all those extra bits into what we should talk about next time.
Perfect. Where can people connect with you if they're not connected with you yet online?
So I am most active on Twitter where I'm at Randfish, but I'm also reasonably findable on LinkedIn and post there pretty often. And if you want to try out SparkToro, you can obviously do that at sparktoro.com. Okay, last question. Every good marketing strategy starts with fill in the blank. Deep understanding of your audience. Awesome. Thank you so much, sir. Good to see you. This was a delight as always. Lovely to see you too. Rand is someone who just is so unafraid to share. I think he might be afraid of not sharing. Like, I almost feel like he's that type of person. He's like, if I don't tell you this, if I don't tell you the full story of everything I'm thinking, then I didn't do my job. Like, I didn't do it. Yeah. I think you even said it in the interview. Like, he feels a duty to kind of like teach based on his own personal experience, which is kind of
it's a hard thing to do. Like, to go through something that is dynamic and has twists and turns and like be very reflective and introspective about it, but then like let other people into that. Like, I didn't know all the ins and outs of Moz and like what that meant for him and what that meant for other employees there, and he dove in.
Well, he used to do this annual report on Moz, and it was like exactly how many customers they had, exactly what their revenue was, a bunch of other stuff. And I remember, I mean, I mentioned in the interview, but I remember like he'd do this and Brendan and I would pour through it and we'd talk about it and we'd be like, oh, this thing's working, this thing's not. And it was kind of like, there's this big thing about like building in public now, for startups as a way to like market themselves. Like, you just share your numbers in public. And Rand was the first person I saw do that. But I'll never forget actually that at one point I was asking him about that. I'm like, oh, it's really cool that you do that. Do you think we should do it? He's like, you should share some stuff. But I would not get on a schedule where you always share the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Because like when things are good, it's really easy to do. But when you hit a speed bump, which we all hit at some point, it gets quite hard to share. And some speed bumps when you hit and you share, it makes you do worse than better.
No, it totally makes sense. Like, having too much information can be overwhelming. It can cause anxiety. It can like make people act erratically. So yeah, you kind of have to pick and choose. Gotta pick and choose.
You gotta pick and choose.
It seems like a time when you don't really have to pick and choose is with your audience. It's like you're always kind of being straight with them. I can't see a lot of downside to being anything but transparent.
Well, it's funny you say that because I feel like we did this recording yesterday live, and if you listen to the episode, it'll come out next week or the week after.
I just keep doing this because I don't know when, and now.
Oh, it's coming out in the future. But when you listen to the inbound episode, it was funny that we were talking about what we're talking about. I won't ruin it, but I shared a story, and I was like, I kind of can't believe I'm saying this story out loud to an audience of 1,000 people.
Yeah.
Like, this is so weird. And I noticed after the fact, like, oh, I've trained myself because of the show to get comfortable sharing in this venue these certain types of things.
Sure.
And I think it's been an interesting process for me in terms of like, wow, it has given me more confidence that I can share this stuff. And hopefully folks are getting something out of it in terms of like, yeah, sometimes things are really good and sometimes they're not, or like we are learning about different topics that like I might not have ever said to anybody that I was learning about. So it's very cool to see that, but I also have like parts of my life that aren't in this at all.
Totally.
And so it's just always trying to figure out like which things should I actually be sharing, which things should I not, and when is it helpful to share, when is it, I think it's an interesting challenge for anyone who's trying to build an audience. It's like, where do you draw that line?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if Rand has a line.
He doesn't really seem to have a line. But that's what makes him Rand.
That's the beauty of Rand.
That's the beauty of Rand. Our line, though, I think is here.
Our line is here.
What we'll say is, thank you so much. If you're still with us, we love you. And please don't forget to rate and review the show.
You crossed the line, Chris. You just crossed the line.
Oh, yeah. I shouldn't have said love.
Scratch
that. Can you cut that in the edit? We like you very much. We appreciate you. If you have feedback on the show or ideas, you can always email us at ttlpod@wistia.com. We'd love to hear from you. You can subscribe at wistia.com or wherever you listen to podcasts. And I think that's it.
That's the line.
That's the line. Well, I'll see you in 2 weeks, Sylvie.
Deuces. I gave you the deuces sign.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
Keeping, tennis always front and center.
Always end with tennis.